The day began with a digital siege. From the sterile comfort of his California headquarters, Elon Musk had launched an all-out assault on President Donald J. Trump's landmark American Family's First Jobs Bill. To his hundreds of millions of followers on X, Musk was a digital warlord, deploying an arsenal of complex charts, logarithmic scales, and scathing economic predictions. He called the bill a monument to inefficiency, a fiscally irresponsible monstrosity, and a multi-trillion-dollar anchor that will drag this nation to the bottom of the ocean. The media, addicted to conflict, amplified his every post. News anchors spoke in grave tones about Musk's dire warnings. Financial experts, eager for airtime, nodded along, dissecting the billionaire's intricate data points. By noon, the narrative was set. Trump's bill, designed to bring manufacturing jobs back to the heartland, was toxic. It was a well-intentioned but foolish fantasy, and Elon Musk, the visionary genius of our time, was the only one brave enough to say it. The pressure was immense, the momentum seemingly unstoppable. But President Trump wasn't in Washington. He wasn't glued to a screen, crafting a 280-character rebuttal. He was on his way to Warren, Ohio, a town etched with the scars of outsourced jobs and broken promises. He was heading into the lion's den for a televised town hall. And everyone knew the main event wouldn't be a question about foreign policy or healthcare. It would be a showdown. The people's president versus the tech titan. The atmosphere inside the high school gymnasium was thick with a mixture of desperation and defiance. These were people who had seen their factories shuttered, their main street hollowed out, and their children leave for cities with more opportunities. They had heard about Musk's posts. Some felt a knot of dread, fearing the billionaire's intellect would dismantle their last hope. Others simmered with a quiet anger. As President Trump took the stage, the moderator, a well-known national journalist, wasted no time. "Mr. President," she began, her tone sharp, "over the last 24 hours, Elon Musk has systematically dismantled the core economic principles of your jobs bill. He has presented data suggesting it will lead to hyperinflation and a collapse in productivity. With all due respect, sir, he has the numbers. What do you have?" The camera zoomed in on Trump's face. The nation held its breath. On the massive screen behind the president, Elon Musk appeared via live video link, a smirk playing on his lips. He sat in a minimalist, all-white room, looking less like a man and more like a logo. President Trump glanced at the screen, then turned his attention to the audience. A sea of anxious, hopeful faces. A calm settled over him. "I heard what Mr. Musk had to say," Trump began, his voice steady and conversational. "A lot of big words, a lot of complicated charts. He's a very smart man, they tell me. But I've found that sometimes the smartest people in the room are the easiest to fool because they get so lost in their numbers, they forget what they're actually counting." Musk's smirk tightened. He was about to interject, but Trump continued, his voice beginning to build. "He talks about fiscal responsibility. He talks about market dynamics. But this bill isn't about market dynamics. It's about American dynamics. It's about the dynamic of a father being able to look his daughter in the eye and tell her he has a good job to go to in the morning." A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. This wasn't the language of economists. This was the language of their lives. "Mr. President, that's a lovely sentiment," the moderator cut in. "But sentiments don't balance a budget. Mr. Musk's projections are based on hard evidence." "Evidence?" Trump interrupted, a fire now in his eyes. He turned and pointed directly at the giant screen. "You want to talk about evidence, Elon. I've got your evidence right here. He scanned the crowd, his gaze locking onto a woman in the third row. Ma'am, you, right there. Can you please come up here? A woman in her late 40s, her face etched with a lifetime of hard work, looked stunned. Hesitantly, she made her way to the aisle and walked toward the stage. As Trump helped her up the steps, the gymnasium fell into a profound silence. On the screen, Musk's expression shifted from arrogance to annoyance. What's your name? Trump asked gently. Sarah, she said, her voice trembling slightly. And what do you do for a living, Sarah? I'm a line worker at the old Packard electric plant, she said, a flicker of pride in her voice. Third generation. My grandfather worked there. My father worked there. And until a few months ago, I thought I was going to be the last. The audience leaned in. They all knew the story of that plant, how it had been on the verge of closing for good. Tell me what happened a few months ago, Sarah. We were told it was over, she said, tears welling in her eyes. They said it wasn't fiscally viable anymore. That was the term they used. She glanced at the screen with a flash of anger. Then we heard about this bill. We heard you were fighting to keep plants like ours open. The owners, they paused the closure. They said they were waiting to see if this bill passes. They said it would give them the security to stay. The silence in the room was now heavy with emotion. A cameraman focused on an older man in the audience, openly weeping. A young couple in the back held each other tightly. The audience was no longer just watching. They were a part of Sarah's story. They were Sarah. So, this bill, for you, it's not just a piece of paper in Washington, is it? Trump said, his voice low. No, sir, Sarah choked out. It's everything. She fumbled in her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. As she unfolded it, the cameras zoomed in. It was a child's crayon drawing of a small, lopsided house with a smiling family standing in front. My little boy, Tommy. He drew this last night, Sarah said, her voice breaking completely. She held it up for the cameras, for the world, for the billionaire on the screen. He heard me crying, and he asked me what was wrong. I told him I was scared we might have to move. He gave me this and said, "Don't worry, Mommy. This is our forever house." She turned and faced the giant screen, her eyes blazing with a mother's fierce, protective love. This isn't about your algorithms, Mr. Musk. This isn't about your spreadsheets or your stock price. This is about whether my son gets to sleep in his own bed. This is about my family. It was a devastating emotional blow. The audience erupted, not just with applause, but with a raw, cathartic roar of support. They were on their feet, clapping, cheering, many with tears streaming down their faces. The sound was an overwhelming wave of human emotion, a force of nature that no amount of data could repel. On the screen, Elon Musk was visibly flustered. His intellectual fortress had been breached, not by a superior argument, but by a crayon drawing and a mother's tears. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked to the side, as if searching for an escape from the thousands of eyes now judging him. He had been rendered utterly powerless. He was no longer a genius. He was just a cold, distant man on a screen, defeated by something he could never quantify: love. President Trump put a comforting arm around Sarah, letting the applause wash over them. He waited for it to subside. Then he walked back to the podium, his expression resolute. He looked directly into the main camera, speaking not just to the room, but to the entire country. You want to see the numbers? There's your numbers. A family, a home, a future. That's the only economy that matters. He paused, letting the words sink in, then delivered the final, devastating blow. Elon Musk can have his algorithms and his spreadsheets. He can have his rockets and his billions. I'll take the side of American mothers and fathers every single time. Our country is a family, not a soulless corporation. The town hall ended, but the story was just beginning. Sarah's testimony became an unstoppable viral phenomenon. The clip of her holding up the crayon drawing, her voice filled with raw emotion, was played on every news channel. The hashtags #AmericanFamily and #Soulless Corporation trended for the rest of the day. Support for the bill didn't just climb, it skyrocketed. The cold, sterile debate of economics had been transformed into a deeply personal, emotional crusade for the American soul. Elon Musk's digital empire of charts and figures had been conquered by a single human receipt. The battle for the heart of the nation was fought in that town hall. But what do you believe was the moment that truly turned the tide? Was it Sarah's story or President Trump's powerful closing words? Join the conversation below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines.